Before we dive in, a quick note. If you want weekly tools to grow and lead your business, sign up for my free newsletter at stevepreda.com/newsletter. Good day, dear listeners. Steve Preda here with the Management Blueprint, and my guest today is Piyush Jain, the founder and CEO of Simpalm, a custom software development company, and the co-founder of Ducknowl, a candidate screening and assessment application business for high-volume recruiting. Piyush, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm very curious about the stuff that you have to share with us. And I'd like to ask first about your personal purpose. What is your why and how are you manifesting it in your business?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. And, I think for every entrepreneur or tech founder, really that's the motivation, why you want to do certain things. So for me, like if I look at it myself, my personal why is why we are not solving challenges or why we are not solving them right way, why we are not transforming our life. I grew up in India and then I came to US. So I've seen so many different parts of the world from like Asia to North America. And I see people face different challenges, but then we are not focusing on solving those problems. A lot of it, I see is there's a lot of challenges in the world because I believe there are not enough entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs are the one who really take the risk, combine everything and create the solutions. And that was me, right? That's what I learned growing up, that I think I can do that, right? I can combine the technical knowledge and the business acumen and create solutions that people like, solve their challenges. Growing up, I'm more on the technical side. I was inclined more on the science and technology. But then as I got into my undergrad and graduation, grad school, I realized that, I have that entrepreneurship aspect, but it's still around like science, technology. That's when I realized that, what, I cannot be a pure scientist or maybe a pure entrepreneur, but I can be someone who can combine these two because my main driving factor is problem solving. I can combine these two and then live my life, be very happy with what I do. That has been my motivation.
I like it. So solving challenges and being an entrepreneur and kind of combining the two, being the technical expert and the entrepreneur in one. Now, one of the things that we always talk about on this podcast is frameworks. And you have developed a really good one for AI ideation, which I think is something that everyone needs to do these days or use these days. And it helps you create business apps and other business applications. Can you share with me how that framework works and what are the steps in it?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So just to give you a brief background, we have been building software for the last 15 years. There was companies have used a different framework, whether it's like agile or waterfall, in SDLC, in building the software, right? There are different methodology that companies have used and they have been good, successful. They have played their role. But now with the advent of AI, things have changed. We had to figure out in our organization how to use AI. And that's how this framework was built. And my team helped me building this framework as well. But we realized that we were losing business. We were losing clients since we did not have an AI framework that will fit our clients. Again, for me, it's a challenge. So anytime I see a challenge, it creates brain juice in me, right? So I said, okay, let's figure out how we create this framework.
How did you do it?
So really, we built this framework, very interesting. A lot of the steps are similar to, but then a lot of things are different. Whenever client come to us and they say, hey, they want to solve this challenge, what we do is we do enough research. And in that now we use a lot of AI tools to really understand the problem better and understand the user persona. When you build any software application, there is a person who's going to use that. Sometimes we used to do user research or focus studies to understand that. Now, with the help of AI, we can get a lot of idea about the user persona. For example, maybe we are building a healthcare application for an anesthesiologist. I don't know much about that. I know, because I have been through some medical surgery and all that, but I can't understand their user persona, their requirement with respect to that application that we're building. But now with AI, I can actually ask different AI models, hey, we're building this app for anesthesiologists. What are their pain points? How would they see it, right? So all that deeper mindset and psychology we can get using AI.
You're validating the idea by interrogating AI applications.
Like, what user is going to like and all that. So I will always use this term earlier, like, in software engineering, now we have this pre-AI and post-AI, right? Like if you read history, like we talk about before Christ and after Christ, right?
Yeah.
So
Before
the
COVID.
similar thing now, yeah, exactly. Or before COVID, after COVID. So before AI, like, after we do all the user research and everything and creating a requirement document, we would usually do like design, create like a visual design of the software. But now with the AI framework, we don't do that. That's not the next step. What we do is we create like a quick prototype using AI platforms. So there are a lot of AI platforms like Lovable, Claude, now ChatGPT launched like Codex for
Mhm.
coding and Replete and a lot, depending upon what kind of application you're building. So for example, maybe if you're building a web-based application, then I recommend using Lovable or Replete. They're very good in creating that. Like whatever your software you want to create, whatever you want to, like, the user personas that you're addressing, you can feed into that and it will create like a prototype application.
Okay.
So what that does is actually then this prototype, like our clients, they can just take that to their customer or internal users and get the feedback. Like, a picture is better than 1,000 words. Companies, organization discussing about an idea is different than when they see something. Then
Mhm.
everybody start chipping in. Oh yeah, I see this in the prototype, but I don't want this.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I want to move things around. This is what I want. Basically, building prototype in AI platform is faster than building like wireframes and design prototype. Like
Yeah.
earlier, we used to do that. So
So
that
it's
has changed.
3D, 3D printing your software, right?
Yes, exactly. There you go. Wow, that's a very good way you put it together. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, exactly. You're just 3D printing the software, right? So you can see it, visualize it, and then like once you go through that, it creates a lot of better ideas about the software, like in faster time. So once you have that, then you go into UI UX design. So in that also there are like two steps. One is like wireframing. Wireframing is like creating the flow in black and white. It's like creating a skeleton of your software. It
Mhm.
does not have the color, the font, and the branding, but you just create all different user journey, the screens, the flow, and the fields that will be there on the screen. So we have integrated AI in that step as well. So earlier, it used to be created by designer or business analyst. Now we are using software like UIZard or UX Pilot where we define what we want, what kind of user journey we want, flow screens, and it creates that. It spins out those wireframes like in minutes and everything. So really that has reduced now. The time it used to take to create wireframes is faster now.
So you're designing the wireframes with AI?
Yes, but it is just the wireframe part of it. And it's still done by our expert BA, right? Or designer who knows how to really visualize things and who have done a lot of wireframes and sketch wireframes. So they know what to tell AI. Prompting is very important. It's very, very important. Like, you know how to prompt, what to see, so that you can have variations and differentiation in the wireframes. Like you don't
Yeah.
want like a standard AI created wireframe. Like everybody can understand now AI created image, right? If I show you, you'll say, oh yeah, it's AI generated. I know that, right? Yeah. So again, like, we keep the human intelligence. Like we are not asking AI to create the full software end to end. It never works. It will
Yeah.
never work. It never works, right? So I know it's a strong statement I'm making, but I'm making that because of the experience and understanding the human behavior and psychology.
So AI agents will not be able to code software, in your opinion?
No, they can do the coding, but they cannot build the whole software end to end, a production deployed software, because these softwares are being used by human. You have to have human intelligence to understand and define what you need and how it works. You can create maybe some software, but it doesn't work very well. Like, even I have used all these platforms. You can cut down like your production time and cost by 30 to 40%, 50%, right? That's the number we are seeing.
Okay.
30 to 50% reduction, depending upon the software that you're building and the objectives and all that.
So just to recap, so you validate the idea by interrogating Claude and ChatGPT, whoever ask about the needs of that customer, the psychology of the customer. That's step number one. Step
Yeah.
number two is 3D print the software with Lovable or Ripple.
Right.
So proof of concept, and then you design the wireframes.
Yeah.
And then what's next after you design the wireframes? What's the next
Yeah.
step?
So that's a good thing. Now I'm going to talk about human element that some of people who would be listening to this podcast will be surprised. Now it comes to like visual design, right? So you have created the skeleton and
Mhm.
you have to add the skin, the tone, the color, the emotions to the design, to the workflow. Now we have tried AI, but it doesn't work. It's very monotonous.
Mhm.
So we use like a experienced visual designer, UX designer for that step to
Mhm.
give the emotion.
Yeah.
When you use AI, I wish I could show you some example. It creates similar kind of design to apps and softwares. So what we did is actually we gave three different apps and very different objective and everything. And the design it came up with was very similar.
Yeah. The
Blocks,
theory.
buttons, very monotonous. So there's no differentiator. And design is the main thing that would be this differentiator, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we learned with our experiences. And I say that very categorically in all of my speech or like, AI related talk that, yeah, visual design, final UX, it has to be HI, not AI, because you are
Yeah.
communicating emotions, right? And AI is still not there to communicate the emotions, understand.
Yeah. It
So
doesn't have emotion.
well, some people will argue with you and say, no, it has, it can understand if you're sad or happy. But then my response to that is like, it's because we have programmed it this way. But things change, right? Based upon the situation, context, ethnicity, culture, situation, fear, how people express nervousness, fear, and all that. It's very, very different. So there was this AI company, video interviewing AI company, 5, 6 years ago. They were sued by Department of Justice because they were capturing the emotions of people like anxious, nervous
Mhm.
when the interview was happening. It turned out they did their study, their model only based upon one race. They did not. They're like account for other races, right? Other
Yeah.
ethnicity. So they just focus on one race and ethnicity, and their model failed, and they were sued by Department of Justice for that. So yeah, emotions is something, maybe it has unlimited dimensions, right? We don't know. So it's hard to program yet. So basically ideation, prototype, wireframe, and then this final visual design. That's discovery and design framework. Now, when it comes to development framework, this is where like AI has been a game changer, coding part. But again, you have to be very careful, how you use AI in your coding pattern with your coding team. It depends upon the application, depend upon the tech stack, right? Every platform has its own strength and weakness. Like for example, if you want to build like a web-based application in React JS framework, then Lovable is great, right? That's very, very good, very efficient and cost effective. Then Claude is there. Claude has been really, really good in software engineering. I would say it has been built and designed mostly for coding, right? Anthropic, their starting point was like coding, right? How to make coding and software engineering easier. So they have been front runner in the race. Like ChatGPT is trying to catch up using Codex.
Yeah.
And Copilot is great. Copilot is mostly used by enterprises like who are on Microsoft stack. They like Copilot. They have been doing a lot of coding in .NET and enterprise level. They are used to Copilot. It's because they feel comfortable with Microsoft
Mhm.
security policies and all that. Right? That's fine. But in general, we see like cloud to be at the top, like from our perspective. But here there are we have built a framework in software coding as well. In software development, there has been a popular process called peer review. So when you create source code, you get it reviewed by your peer, your colleague.
Is this
So
what happens on GitHub?
yeah. So basically anywhere, like any source code repository, right? You can do that. So it's basically your team members help you make your code better and efficient.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
But now we have a step called prompt peer review.
Mm.
When you are going to use prompt in building the software, they get reviewed by team members.
Hmm.
Because if your prompt are not very specific, good enough, older way, like SDLC, you can have a lot of challenge trying to fix the code.
Mm.
Because now you have a situation, you have a code that you have not written fully. And when you ask AI to change something in the code, sometimes it end up changing a lot of things that you don't want it to change.
Yeah.
That's what we have seen, and that's why we evolve. Before we build any software, we create like maybe 10, 20, 30 page prompt document. where we go through each screen functions, write it, and it's very sophisticated. Like it has evolved very well. But the thing is, and it takes few days to do that within the team because we know if we do it right, our next step is faster and will be more
Yeah.
accurate. So really, it's the prompt document. Like think of it more as an architecture document. Earlier, we used to create like a solution architect document defining all the tools, everything, design. But now it's more like an AI driven solution architect document with the prompts which get reviewed by team members. So that we do that. And then, we run that, we get the code and everything. So I have a CTO club. I run a CTO club of Maryland. And yesterday I was talking to like CTOs. So they all are using it, but some of them are so advanced that they actually define the test case in the beginning, right?
Wow.
They define, okay, this is what I want in this screen. This is the function I want. And this is my test case I want it to pass through. That's even more advanced than if you can do that, you can have a very, very efficient code.
Yeah. Love
So,
it.
yeah.
Is at the end, so you have your test case, you design the prompt, you peer review the prompt, and then you already had the prototype. So now you are coding the software. And what's the last step?
Yeah, then there's the integration as well, right? So AI doesn't do the integration so well. Like can do the front end coding, you can do the back end coding, you can probably create the APIs. I mean, APIs require a lot more human intervention. But once you have that, then you have to connect it, right? You have to connect the front end with the back end. A lot of that is done like still by the programmer. It's hard to rely on AI for doing that. And again, it depends upon the application. Maybe if it's a smaller application, maybe you can have AI do that. But if it's a bigger application, and we build mostly like a bigger application, then like integration, then final QA and testing and deployment, right? So all that is there. But in each of these steps, you can use some sort of AI tool to speed up the process. But the key is you still have to have your architecture, the process, you have to know the steps more. You have to be a good experienced developer to use AI efficiently. If you want to build a production ready application, you can build a prototype. Anybody can build a prototype on Replit or Lovable, but it's not going to be production ready that you can give to your customer and charge them money.
Yeah.
So that's the differentiator.
Understand. So Piyush, I'd like to switch gears here. I understand the AI ideation framework. That's great. So we talked about the technical part of it, the curiosity, the technical challenges. Let's talk about the entrepreneurship part, which is also part of your profile. So what drives your business, the growth of your business? What would you say drives it?
For us, there are multiple factors that drive the growth of our business. The first is, again, our problem solving attitude. Any client that comes to us, we communicate to them in that model, right? Hey, the problem, the challenge, the solution, the business part, the value proposition we bring. And the second factor is our location. Like we are here in Maryland, and then we have another office in Chicago. So being here, like we have a global shoring model, right? So that's the main driving factor of our business from the entrepreneurship perspective. So what global shoring model is, like our client facing team, the senior team is here. So solution architect, sales engineer, designer, project manager, business analyst, they're here, right? Client facing in US. And our dev team and testers, they are in our offshore location. Some people call it hybrid shoring. I call it right shoring because the reason I call it right shoring is in this model, you have right people at the right shore. So you can get the most value. Like here, you have people who understand the culture, the product culture, right? Because products will be used by people in certain culture. And if you are not in that culture, you have not played that, it's always hard for you to design that software solution. And I was one of the first person to start that model here in DMV area for mid-sized companies and smaller. This model was there for large companies, always like larger companies, enterprise companies, they have used that. But I started to offer that 16 years ago to smaller companies. Either companies were just going offshore or they were doing onshore, right? I started this hybrid shoring model, which has been liked by our customers. So that's it.
So what is one thing that you're trying to figure out in your business right now?
Right now, what I'm trying to figure out in my business is scaling. I mean, we have built solutions for many different industries. We have built solutions for different clients in fintech, healthcare, education, nonprofit, startup, IoT, construction. But now what we're trying to figure out is how do we create some off-the-shelf solutions for different industries? Because one challenge that we see is like from client's perspective, like, getting a custom software built is time and money. But if we, in certain use cases, we can have some off the shelf solution, industry specific, and then we can customize those based upon the client's need. So that's what, we are trying to figure out in different industry, what can those be? So we can scale up, and also it becomes easier. And these are more like AI driven off the shelf solutions, customizable. So think of it like Salesforce, like, it's core is like, off the shelf, but then you can customize the front end, a lot of other things. Not something like Salesforce, but like industry specific solutions for different use cases, nonprofit construction, right?
Yeah.
What can be those? So like, the overall, like, we can build faster solution for
That's fascinating. So, how has the offshoring or right shoring, as you call it, model evolved over the past 10 years? Is it different now than it was 10 or 10
yeah.
years ago?
Yeah, no, that I think that's a great question you have asked. It has evolved and changed. Earlier, like, maybe before 10 years, 12 years, when we were talking about hybrid shoring, we were talking about just US and Asia.
Mhm.
But now we have different players. We have nearshore model, which has become quite popular as well, like South America. We have a team member in nearshore as well. We have team member in South America as well, because we want to like leverage different time zone and resources and culture as
Yeah.
well. And we have seen very positive results. And then you have East Europe. We have competition from Ukraine to Belarus, Romania, Poland. I think it's the part of the globalized world, right? Like it's like energy flowing in all different space. It's not limited to one
Yes.
place, right? Which is great. So that is one evolving part. Maybe like, I know some people, they're in Kenya, right? There's developers, some companies they're setting up in East Africa, West Africa, Kenya, right? So different places are playing roles.
Mhm.
That's one thing, like, I see. And now with the help of AI, what's going to happen is it's going to play like, two different roles. Like, one, in a lot of situations, now with AI, you can do a lot of things onshore. That's one aspect of it. And second is with AI, now somebody sitting offshore and they know AI, they can be very, very competitive as well. We don't have enough data to really see these evolving like points, but maybe in a year or so, we'll see how they play out, right?
But I
That's
also
kind of
with this simultaneous translation software, like Apple, I think an iPhone can now translate in all languages.
correct.
Essentially, another barrier falls that if the language knowledge of your offshore contract is not perfect, they
Correct,
can now
correct, correct.
understand much clearer things because of the simultaneous translation. So there, I think even on Zoom, you can now flick a switch and then they can read what's happening in their own
Correct.
language in a
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's amazing, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like they can understand more about the culture, mindset. So that's something like, you have to see. Again, like I think it would depend upon the use cases, the application, the problem we are solving.
Mhm.
But in some cases, like maybe it's a great news for onshore, right? We can keep more dollars here. But like, keeping dollars here with AI means like a lot of dollars is still going to AI, right? So that's one thing we have to be very, very careful. Like, so yesterday, like in our tech breakfast, our presentation was how to optimize your AI tokens.
Yes, that's
There are
amazing.
some companies they're spending $150,000 per year per employee on tokens.
Wow.
That's like a salary of one employee,
Yeah.
right? Mid-level developer, 150 they are spending, right? And then they're trying to figure out how to optimize it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they have the cloud cost, right? The cloud is still there, AWS Azure cost, and then you have AI. So it's a lot of money, but you really have to be very smart to understand and optimize. That's why like prompting is so important, right?
Mhm.
It's not just about getting the right software, it's also about getting the cost down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, you need expert people who can prompt well
Correct.
because it's about being able to communicate well. Prompting
Yeah,
is great. It's about
exactly.
communication. It's about clarity, brevity,
Yeah.
accuracy, all that stuff. So Piyush, we are coming close to the end of the recording. So if someone would like to learn more about the applications that you can develop, how you're using AI, how you can help their business develop technology, where can they find you and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. Like, there are many ways people can reach out to me. They can go to my website, simpalm.com. We have a contact form. They can submit contact form there, or They can reach out to me via email directly, contact@simpalm.com. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, message me, reach out to me over there if somebody need anything. And, I always like discussing problems and what can be the solutions. If anybody reach out to me, I'm always very quick to respond.
That's awesome. So Piyush Jain, the CEO of Simpalm, and we didn't even talk about your other business, Ducknowl. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing your insights and your framework of how to build an ideation framework for AI. So thanks for sharing that. And if you're listening and you enjoy this conversation, then stay tuned because every week we have another entrepreneur that is sharing their insights and frameworks with you. So make sure you follow us on YouTube and subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcast. So thanks for coming.
Thank you, Steve.
And thanks for
Thank you.
listening.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate you listening today. Stay connected. Sign up for my free weekly newsletter at steveperito.com/newsletter.